Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into worn sandals, rough wool cloaks, and lives built on calluses and borrowed time. We're not lords or merchants tonight, no shiny coins jingling in our belts. Just you, the dirt road, and the sound of your stomach complaining louder than the crickets. You're leaving your village with only what you can carry, and that isn't much. The sun dips behind the low hills, casting long amber shadows over the thatched roofs you're now walking away from. Chickens settle in coops, hearths glow through shuttered windows, and you're on the road. Alone mostly. Hungry, definitely. You probably won't survive this, but let's pretend you might. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your location and local time. I love seeing how far this sleepy little community reaches. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge away from the only place you've ever known. The dirt path ahead of you snakes between tired fields and tangled hedgerows. You're barefoot, or nearly your shoes are more memory than material, held together by hope and string. Every few steps, a stone jabs your heel, and by the time you reach the old millstone near the stream, your legs already threaten mutiny. You're not exactly sure where you're going. Maybe a cousin in another village. Maybe a harvest job a traveler swore was real 2 market days ago. Maybe just anywhere but where you were. You're one of the many poor, the landless folk who drift through history, like wind through trees, felt but rarely recorded. As the sky darkens, you realize how quickly the world shifts after sunset. The trees crowd closer. The air cools. Sounds you didn't notice before: the sharp crack of a twig, the distant bay of a dog, the flutter of wings overhead, are now all you can hear. It's not that the road is louder at night, it's just that you have less to drown it out. And your stomach, it stopped growling. That's not a good sign. You pass a small stream and kneel beside it. The water's cold and sweet, but it does nothing to fill the emptiness inside you. A crust of bread might be in your satchel if you didn't already eat it for lunch, or maybe you traded it for some boiled onions from a village boy with too many. Either way, you're back to gnawing on air. Still, it could be worse. You haven't been robbed. You haven't fallen into a ditch. And small miracles, no one's shouted at you to keep off their land. Yet. You start looking for a place to sleep. The sun is gone now, and the world is blue. Not a kind blue, this is the kind that drains color from your fingers and makes your nose sting. You clutch your cloak tighter around your shoulders, wishing it were made of something thicker than hope and patchwork. You remember what an old man once told you in the village: don't sleep under trees if you can help it. Spirits like to climb down when the wind's quiet. You laughed at the time, but now, well, maybe just a little farther down the road. A cart rattles past in the distance. You freeze instinctively, ducking into the grass. It's not that you're doing anything wrong, but people don't always ask questions before swinging a cudgel. The cart rolls by without slowing, a dim lantern swinging beneath it, like a sleepy eye. You wait a few more heartbeats before standing up. You find a ditch dry enough, grass high enough to offer a little cover. You pull your cloak tighter, curl into a ball, and close your eyes. But you don't sleep, not yet. You listen to the rustle of weeds, the creak of trees, the distant hoot of an owl. You replay every sound 3 times to make sure it's not footsteps. Your body may be aching, but your mind is wide awake. It's like this most nights. That's why the poor are always tired, because sleep isn't safe. Not out here. Still, eventually, your breathing slows. You drift and dream of food. Always food. A wheel of cheese, a hot pie with steam rising from its center, a meat bone you don't even need to fight a dog for. You dream of beds, too. Not just straw mats, but real ones with sheets and a pillow that doesn't smell like mold. You dream of waking up warm, but the reality is different. The earth beneath you is hard. Your back stiffens. Your dreams melt into discomfort. When you wake because of a rustle, or the cold, or a bug crawling near your ear. It's not quite morning, but too late to pretend you're sleeping well. This is a normal night on the road. Historians still argue whether peasants traveled more than we think. Some say they rarely left their manors bound by law and land. Others believe they were surprisingly mobile, chasing seasonal work markets rumors. One thing they agree on, wherever the poor went, they rarely had a place to stay. And if they did, it wasn't free. One quirky detail. In some parts of 13th century France, there were designated roadside stones where poor travelers would gather, supposedly, so locals could offer scraps or cast stones depending on their mood. Hospitality was always a coin toss. Now your eyes blink open again. A beetle crawls across your arm. Your mouth is dry. The night drags. There's no campfire, no songs. Just you, the cold, and 1,000 stars that don't seem to care. And you get up. Because sleeping too long in one place out here might mean not waking up at all. You stretch bones cracking like dry twigs. One step, then another, and soon you're walking again, chasing the faint idea that maybe, just maybe, tomorrow's road will lead to something better. Maybe. You keep walking. The air is thick with mist clinging to your skin like damp cloth. Dawn doesn't so much rise as seep in gray first, then blue, but never warm. Your breath curls in the chill, visible in puffs like a poor man's offering to the sky. Your stomach hasn't rumbled in hours. It's simply given up the fight. Up ahead, across a narrow stream and beyond a crooked fence, you spot an inn. The kind with a pitched roof, a carved wooden sign, maybe a stag or a tankard, though you're too far to see clearly. You can hear the clink of pots, the low murmur of morning voices, even the rattle of hooves from the stables nearby. A fire burns within. You can smell it. Smoke and roasted oats and maybe, just maybe, a hint of something meaty. You feel your legs shift toward it instinctively. But then you remember. You can't afford it. Inns are for people with coin or names or at the very least shoes. You're not the kind of guest they're hoping to welcome. You're the kind they hope walks past quietly, without being seen. You hover near the fence, heart fluttering with foolish hope. A stable hand glances up, then glances away just as fast. That's all the warning you need. Any closer and someone will come out with a broom, or worse. You don't want to be chased before breakfast, so you turn away. It's not that you haven't tried before. One time you offered to sweep floors for a crust or stable horses for a place by the coals. But the answer was the same every time: no room. Try the next village. The next village is always 3 days away. Historians agree that inns, when they existed, were rarely for the wandering poor. They catered to merchants, clergy, travelers of means. For everyone else, the road was your bed, and the stars your ceiling. You might find a leper house that offered shelter, or a monastery with charity rules, but even those had limits. In some towns, a law required inns to offer space to pilgrims, but space often meant the stable floor, or worse, a share of the straw behind the pigs. That is if the innkeeper felt particularly holy that evening. You follow the road past the inn. It winds uphill ruts and rocks, making your every step a study in ankle survival. Your cloak flaps in the breeze like a sad little flag, barely shielding you from the drizzle now starting to fall. Eventually, the road crests. You pause. From here, you can see the valley below, rolling fields, distant smoke columns, and another road slicing its way eastward. Somewhere down there is the next possibility. Another village. Another rejection. Another patch of cold dirt to sleep on. Your stomach groans again, betraying your earlier assumption that it had given up. You pat it gently, like a child you can't feed, and keep moving. Along the road, you pass others. A widow with 2 children walking in silence, each carrying a bundle. A young man with a lute strung over his shoulder, tuneless and tired. An old woman pushing a wooden cart full of herbs, humming softly to herself. No one speaks unless they must. Poor travelers rarely do. Words are for warmth, and warmth is precious. You nod as you pass. They nod back. That's all. By mid-morning, your feet are soaked. You step carefully now, avoiding puddles not out of vanity, but preservation. One infected blister, one twisted ankle, that's all it takes to end your journey permanently. The road doesn't forgive the weak. You start checking trees, barns, even ditches for places you might rest come evening. You're learning to plan ahead now, where the sun sets, where the wind breaks, where animals nest. You remember last week when you tried to sleep under a wooden bridge and woke to something licking your fingers. You didn't wait to see what. A small chapel appears on the side of the road. Simple stone walls, a slanted wooden roof, a faded cross carved above the doorway. The doors are closed, but you try anyway. Locked. Of course. Churches are supposed to be open to the weary, but not all priests read the same gospels. You wrap your knuckles gently on the wood, wait, then turn away. You're not angry, just tired. A quirky historical tidbit: in some regions, roadside chapels had beggars' benches under the eaves where the poor could rest without technically entering holy space. It was a loophole that saved lives, especially in winter. But this chapel has no bench, just damp grass and a few thorny bushes for decoration. You sit anyway, just for a minute. You peel your shoes off, if they can still be called that, and examine your feet. Red, cracked skin peeling in places. You rub them gently, hissing with pain. No water for washing, no cloth for bandages. You consider tearing a strip from your cloak, but it's already full of holes, and you need every thread for warmth. You catch yourself nodding off. It's midday. You slap your cheeks lightly and force yourself upright again. Sleeping too early means you'll be up all night, and night is when the road forgets mercy. So you walk, again. As you trudge forward, a bird startles from the brush, something fat flapping awkwardly into the air. Your heart leaps. Food. You lunge, but too slowly. It vanishes, leaving nothing but feathers and humiliation. Behind you, someone chuckles. You spin around. A boy, maybe 12, stands a few paces away with a woven basket in his arms. His clothes are no better than yours, but he's grinning like a lord. In the basket, mushrooms, berries, maybe a turnip. He nods at your failed bird-catching attempt and tosses you something round. You catch it on instinct. An apple. Bruised, but real. You blink. "Don't die," he says simply, then walks past you without another word. You take one bite. It's sour and perfect. Historians still argue whether kindness among the poor was common or exceptional. Some claim desperation makes everyone selfish. Others believe solidarity was the only way the forgotten survived. The truth, it's probably both. You finish the apple, pocket the core, and smile despite yourself. The road rolls on. The sky begins to shift again, afternoon light, fading into that pale gold that says, "Decide soon where you'll sleep." No inns, no coins, but maybe something better than a ditch. Maybe. The sun begins its slow, syrupy descent behind the trees, casting crooked shadows across the path ahead. You quicken your steps, not because you're in a hurry to get somewhere, but because darkness is the worst traveling companion. You don't want to meet what walks these roads when the sun finally ducks out of sight. There's no proper village in sight, just scattered cottages, each too far from the next to offer any real safety. You pass a field where sheep once grazed, now empty, save for a few curious crows pecking at the trampled grass. A dry well sits beside the road stones, crumbling with age. You consider stopping their walls for a windbreak, a bit of shelter, but no roof and definitely no welcome. You keep walking. Eventually, you spot a tree, old, gnarled, and leaning like it's tired of standing. Its roots jut out like ribs, and its branches hang low, offering a kind of canopy. It's not much, but it's the best offer you've had all day. You settle beneath it. It's not your first night sleeping like this. Won't be your last. The bark digs into your spine and your hips ache from the cold ground. You place your bundle beneath your head, just enough to lift it from the dirt, but not enough to cushion it. A rock jabs your ribs. You shift. Another rock. You shift again. There's no such thing as a flat surface when you're poor. Not for sleeping. They say you get used to it. That's not true. You just stop complaining. You pull your cloak tighter and watch as the last of the light drains from the sky. The world turns blue again, your least favorite color now. Blue means cold. Blue means night. Blue means remembering you haven't eaten anything but half a bruised apple since dawn. You hear something, a rustle. You freeze. Your body knows how to listen now. Not the kind of listening you do with ears, but with muscles, breath, bones. Something's moving in the underbrush. Too heavy to be a bird. Too erratic to be wind. You grip a stick nearby, barely more than a twig, but it's something. You hold your breath. A fox. Just a fox. It darts out, sniffs, then dashes away into the trees. You laugh softly. Not from humor, from relief. You've heard stories of worse. Boars, wolves, things that howl like men and move like mist. Whether those things are real or just fireside tales doesn't matter when you're alone. You settle again. The ground is still hard. The night is still cold. But you're too tired to care. Sleep comes in pieces. You doze, wake, doze again. Each time you wake, the sky looks exactly the same. Night stretches on endlessly when you're waiting for it to end. Once during one of your half-sleeps, you dream you're in a feather bed. The pillow is soft and someone's brought you broth. There's bread too, real bread, with butter even. You wake up with drool on your chin and a spider crawling across your leg. Back to reality. A mainstream fact: most peasants during the medieval period never traveled far from where they were born. Bound to the land they lived and died within the same handful of miles. But there were exceptions: seasonal laborers, fugitives, pilgrims, and the simply desperate. That's you. Exceptionally desperate. But tonight, you're not alone. You hear footsteps on the road. Slow, careful. You shrink back into the tree's shadow, barely breathing. A figure passes, a woman, maybe cloaked and carrying a basket. She walks with her head low, eyes scanning the edges of the road. You stay silent, and she keeps walking. That's how it usually goes. Travelers don't talk at night unless they have to. There's safety in silence. You doze again. This time you're woken by something softer. Music. Not real music, not like lutes or flutes, but the hum of crickets, the whistle of wind through the branches, the distant croak of frogs. Nature's lullaby, you suppose. You let it wash over you, breathing in time with it. It doesn't warm you, doesn't feed you, but for a brief golden moment it comforts you. Historians still argue whether medieval travelers feared the night more than they feared people. Bandits were real sure, but so were wolves, spirits, and starvation. Some claim people huddled in ditches to avoid detection. Others argue they banded together for safety. The truth, you suspect it depended on the night. Tonight, you're alone. By midnight, the cold has fully settled in. Your limbs are stiff. You try curling tighter, then stretch out. Nothing helps. You consider walking just to warm up, but you're afraid you won't find anything better and too tired to gamble. So you lay there, awake. One quirky tidbit: in parts of rural England, it was common to hang small bells in trees near crossroads to chime away wandering spirits. You wonder if this tree ever had a bell. You wonder if it worked. You wonder if you're lying here because it didn't. Sometime before dawn, your body gives up. You finally sleep. Not deeply, not peacefully, but enough to keep going. When the gray light of early morning finally breaks through the leaves, you sit up slowly. Everything aches. You stretch, groan, brush the dirt from your clothes. It's in your hair, your sleeves, your mouth. You're more soil than skin at this point. Your breath fogs in front of you. You're cold, hungry, tired, but alive. You consider staying put, just a little longer. Let the sun rise, let it warm your limbs. Maybe someone will pass. Maybe they'll have bread. Maybe they'll share. But you know better. Hope is dangerous out here. So you stand, sling your bundle over your shoulder, and begin walking again, feet raw, heart heavier, but still moving. Still searching for a place to rest that doesn't cost more than your life. You're starting to notice a pattern. The world divides itself into those who pass you and those who pretend you're not there. Most of the time, it's the latter. Carts creak by, pulled by donkeys or horses drivers, with eyes locked on the road ahead, never on you. They don't want the guilt of seeing you. Not your dirt, not your hunger, not your shadow. But every so often, there's a third kind of person. Someone who does see you. And when that happens, you have to decide quickly whether they're a kindness or a threat. By late morning, you're limping. The blisters on your feet have burst, and the skin rubs raw with every step. You don't bother looking anymore. What would you do with the information? You've got no ointment, no fresh cloth, and no time. Then off to your left, you spot smoke. Not the thick black kind from a smithy, but the thin, gentle ribbon of a cooking fire. Your stomach reacts before your brain does. You veer off the road toward it, instincts driving you faster than your aching legs want to go. You come to a clearing, a cottage, small, lopsided. The garden's gone to seed and a chicken pecks lazily at the mud. The smoke comes from behind it, from a shed where someone's boiling something. Your mouth waters before you even catch the scent. You approach slowly, cautiously. A woman in a headscarf looks up. Her eyes narrow, her hands never stop moving. You raise one hand in greeting. Not too high, don't want to look like a thief or a beggar. Even though technically, you're both. I don't mean harm, you say. Your voice is hoarse. She squints. Then without a word, she nods toward a wooden stool by the shed wall. You sit. She ladles something into a bowl, onions mostly. Water. Maybe a scrap of fat, if you're lucky. She hands it to you without ceremony. You eat like it's the first thing you've ever tasted, and she watches you. Where are you headed? She asks after a while. You shrug. She nods like she understands. Maybe she does. Maybe her husband died. Maybe the harvest failed. Maybe she knows what it's like to leave everything behind and walk with nowhere to go, or maybe she's just generous. But generosity has a price, even when it's not spoken aloud. You finish the soup, licking the bowl clean with your fingers, ashamed and unashamed all at once. She doesn't ask for coin. You don't have any, but she does hand you a bundle of straw and a broom. You get to work. You sweep the shed floor, carry water from the well, stack wood chase off a particularly stubborn goose. She doesn't talk much, and you don't ask questions. This is the unspoken bargain of the road, help for help. No records, no promises, just survival. Historians often debate whether hospitality was common among the rural poor. Some argue people were fiercely territorial, especially in lean years. Others suggest that the poor took care of each other more often than not knowing how easily roles could reverse. You believe both are true. You've seen it already. A quirky custom you once heard in a village: if someone shared food with you, you were expected to tell a story in return. Not for entertainment, stories were currency. Knowledge, warnings, maps of where kindness lived and where it didn't. So you tell her one. About the old man you saw with turnips stacked like skulls. About a one-eyed horse that kicked anyone who sang. About a ruined inn where the floor still smelled of apples even though no one had been there in a decade. She doesn't laugh, but she listens. By dusk, she offers you a patch of straw in the corner of her shed. It smells of mold and hay. You accept it like a throne. You lie down, the aches in your body settling like sediment. You're warmer than you've been in days. The straw cradles you gently, and the fire from outside casts soft flickers of orange on the beams above. But you don't fall asleep, because you've learned that even here, even in shelter, you need to be cautious. There was once a man who gave you bread, then stole your boots while you slept. Another who invited you inside only to accuse you of theft when his spoon went missing. The world doesn't hand you kindness without risk. That's the price. So you sleep in pieces again, always in pieces. Around midnight, you wake to the sound of a child crying inside the cottage. The kind of wail that pierces walls and skin. You hear soft shushing, then nothing, just silence. And that silence is somehow worse. You stare at the rafters and wonder, how did she end up here? Was this her father's land? Did her husband leave, or is she simply another soul stranded between yesterday and tomorrow? There are so many people like that now. In the years after a plague or a war or a failed harvest, the roads fill up with people who used to be someone. Farmers, tailors, daughters of innkeepers. The past doesn't matter out here. Only the direction you're walking in and how long until you collapse. You think of your own family. Are they still alive? You haven't heard news in weeks. Letters are luxuries. Words are spread by walking mouths. Maybe your village is fine. Maybe it burned. Maybe they assume you're dead already. You roll over in the straw and let your eyes fall shut. You dream again, this time not of food or beds, but of being seen, truly seen, not pitied, not feared, just noticed. When you wake, it's still dark, but the kind of dark that hints at dawn. The woman's already outside stoking the fire. She offers you a half loaf of rye bread and a hard-boiled egg. You nearly cry. Instead, you bow your head in gratitude. You leave quietly. No goodbyes, no names. Just the sound of your footsteps crunching down the path again, heart heavier than your pack. There are thousands like her, and thousands like you. The road stretches ahead. You don't know where it ends, but for now you just keep walking. Because sometimes on nights like that, it's not the ground that makes a place bearable. It's a stranger's mercy. The bread and egg keep you upright for most of the day. It's not a feast, but it's enough fuel to trick your body into thinking you're strong again. Your limbs ache less. Your steps are lighter. You start noticing patterns in the stone walls, the sway of trees and the windbirds overhead you haven't bothered to name in years. You even whistle. Badly. You stop after 3 notes, embarrassed by the sound. The birds don't seem to mind. The world feels for the first time in a while like it's not entirely trying to kill you. But the sun moves fast, and your mind starts its familiar calculation. Where will I sleep tonight? You pass a field, then 2, then an orchard so wild you're not sure if it's abandoned or just neglected. Your eyes scan everything with a practiced gaze. Not for beauty, for use. That barn looks like it might still have a roof. That fence could break the wind. That pile of hay might still be dry underneath. By late afternoon, you find a spot. An old stable. The roof is half collapsed, the door hanging crooked on one hinge. Inside it smells of rot, but not death. Straw blankets the floor in thick clumps. You poke it with a stick first, just to be sure. No rats leap out. No snakes. Just dust and memories. You settle in. You remove your shoes, what's left of them, and rub your feet. The blisters are back. You try not to look too closely. You shift straw into a rough rectangle, fold your cloak on top of it, and lay down, just to test it. It's almost soft. The light through the broken slats paints the walls in gold stripes. You rest your head back and let yourself breathe. Then the noise begins. First, it's the flutter of wings, then scratching, then squeaks, mice, lots of them. You sit up. 2 dark shapes scurry across the far beam. One drops from the rafters and lands not far from your foot. You swing Miss Curse under your breath. Still PG-13, of course. You try again to settle, pulling your cloak tighter. The mice aren't going to eat you, not all at once anyway. But they do gnaw. Not just food. Cloth, rope, hair if you're unlucky. You curl your hands into fists and hope they lose interest. Eventually, they do. The scratching fades. You exhale. And then, like every night, the cold creeps in. It starts at your toes, then slinks up your legs, wrapping itself around your spine. You try curling tighter, pulling your knees to your chest, but there's only so much body to fold. You shiver. Sleep feels far away again. You think of warm beds. You remember stories the priest told once of feather mattresses so thick you disappeared into them, of fireplaces that never went out of people who chose what side to sleep on. You always wondered if he made it all up. One historical fact you cling to: peasants often shared sleeping spaces with animals, pigs, goats, chickens, not out of affection, but warmth. On truly brutal nights, a goose under the blankets could mean the difference between waking up or not. You've never been that lucky. Once you curled against a sheep for warmth. It bit you. You respected its boundaries. Tonight, though, you've got nothing. You think about walking. Sometimes travelers don't stop. They just keep going step after step through the dark. The motion keeps the cold from sinking too deep. But it comes with risk. You might stumble, fall, meet someone worse than mice. Still, it's tempting. You sit up weighing your options, and that's when you hear it. Voices. 2 of them. Outside. You freeze. You drop low, crawling toward the wall's edge, eye pressed to a slat. 2 men. Not farmers. Not travelers. Too clean. Too alert. They speak in low voices, scanning the road. You recognize their type. They're not looking for shelter. They're looking for someone. You stay still. Very still. One of them walks to the stable door. He nudges it open with a boot, peers inside, shrugs, then closes it again. they move on. You don't breathe until their footsteps fade. Historians still argue whether the roads were more dangerous from man or beast. There's no shortage of accounts of roving bands, freelance tax collectors, false pilgrims. Some killed. Others just took everything and left you naked. Some were playful, in the worst ways. You're lucky tonight. The mice feel like old friends now. You lie back down and finally exhaustion drags you under. Not into deep, restful sleep, but the shallow kind where dreams are thin and twitchy, and every noise jolts you back to the surface. Still, it's something. In one of your dreams, you're back in your village. Your father's alive. Your sister's singing. There's stew, real stew. You can smell it. Then you wake up with straw in your mouth and a spider on your cheek. You spit, swipe, sigh. It's barely dawn. You groan, stretch, wince at your joints and stand. Another night survived. Another day earned. No one claps. There's no ceremony. Just the ritual of brushing yourself off and choosing which blister to land on first. You step out into the crisp morning. Fog curls low over the field. The road waits. You glance back at the stable once before moving on. It wasn't kind. It wasn't clean. But it didn't kill you, which on this journey makes it one of the better places you've stayed. You're not sure what day it is anymore. Time on the road stretches and folds like dough. It becomes more about distances and sleeping spots than dates or feast days. All you know is that your legs are sore, your stomach is louder than your voice, and you've walked long enough that even the birds seem tired of watching you. The road is quieter today. The sky is smeared with thick clouds, the kind that hang heavy but don't deliver rain, just tension. The breeze carries a scent of damp stone and distant livestock. You pass hedgerows that look like they've seen better centuries, and a signpost whose lettering has been worn away by time, weather, and maybe boredom. There's something ahead. You squint. Not a town, not yet, but ruins. Old stone arches swallowed by ivy. Broken walls that once belonged to something bigger. A chapel, maybe. Or a manor lost to fire or war or indifference. It doesn't matter. What matters is this shelter. You hurry forward, careful not to look like you're hurrying, just in case someone's watching. You step over a crumbled threshold and into what might have once been a dining hall or a stable. Now it's a skeleton of stone and silence. It's perfect, at least in the way that mostly dry and not actively haunted is perfect. You drop your bundle, sit, then lay down across a slab of stone that juts from one wall like a forgotten bench. It's hard, yes, but at least it's not wet. Yet. You sigh long and low. There are no windows left, just empty arches staring out at the gray hills like hollow eyes. The roof is mostly gone, but there's enough cover to block the wind. You can hear it howling overhead like it's angry you've outsmarted it. For now. This is one of the secret truths of travel ruins make better beds than open fields. They don't care who you are. They don't charge you coin. They don't shout when you crawl in after sunset. And sometimes they still remember warmth. You find old straw in one corner. You gather it into a nest, ignoring the crunch of bugs or bones or both. It smells of mildew and mice. You lower yourself onto it anyway, because out here your standards adjust. Historians agree that the poor often took shelter in ruins, burned barns, or old churches. But this was illegal in many places, trespassing, squatting, or even blasphemy depending on the building. Still, laws don't matter much when you're choosing between that and freezing to death. You spot a candle stub jammed between stones in the wall, a gift from a previous guest. You touch it like a relic. No wick left, but still proof you're not alone. You aren't the first here. You won't be the last. You lay back, letting the stones support your aching spine. You can see the sky through the cracks above, gray and flat and endless. The kind of sky that presses down rather than lifts up. But even so, you're grateful. You've slept in worse places. You remember the hollow log. That one time deep in the woods, you found a tree so old and wide you could crawl inside it. You did. It smelled like earth and rot. You slept with ants in your hair and beetles in your shirt. But it was warm. Sort of. And quiet. Sort of. A quirky historical tidbit: in Eastern Europe, some travelers believed old trees held the memories of the dead, and that sleeping inside one might give you their dreams. You tried once. All you saw was a field of bones and a woman singing in a language you didn't know. You never tried again. But ruins are different. Less personal. More indifferent. You shift on the stone slab, trying to find the angle that doesn't dig into your ribs. You fail. But you find one that only mildly bruises them, and that's close enough. As the afternoon fades, you close your eyes. Just a little rest. Just an hour. And then the bell rings. Faint, far, but unmistakable. A church bell. You sit up fast, heart racing. Not because you're afraid, but because that sound means people. A village, a town, possibly bread. You stand, joints cracking like firewood. You shoulder your bundle and step back onto the road, leaving the ruin behind with a nod of thanks. As you walk, the bell tolls again. Steadier now, regular. Not a warning or a death toll, just time marked for someone else. You follow the sound like a child chasing a lullaby. And then you see it. A village nestled in a dip between hills. Smoke from chimneys. Chickens pecking in yards. A few children chasing each other near the well. It looks normal. Boring. Beautiful. You approach slowly. Eyes find you. A man sharpening a blade beside his door pauses. A woman drawing water stiffens. A dog growls, not bark, just low and uncertain. You don't speak first. You let them see your hunger. Your ragged shoes, your hands open and empty. Finally, someone steps forward. A widow, maybe. You can tell by her eyes, tired, kind, sharp. She gestures to a corner of her yard. There's a small wooden lean-to near the chicken coop. You nod. Bow. Whisper thank you like it's a prayer. You settle in as the sun sets. It smells like feathers and straw. You don't care. The chickens ignore you. The children stare. One brings you a crust of bread. You almost cry again. You fall asleep to the sound of clucking wind and that bell, fainter now, but still ringing somewhere far above you in the dark. You wake to the sound of feathers flapping and one very indignant chicken perched squarely on your chest. It stares at you with judgmental, beady eyes before giving a dismissive cluck and hopping down into the straw. You sigh. At least something thinks this shed belongs to it. Your back hurts. Not in the dramatic, oh no, I'm dying way, just in the quiet, familiar ache of a body that hasn't slept in a real bed in far too long. You stretch, cracking joints like a cheap ladder, and crawl out from the lean-to into the pale morning light. The widow is already in her garden, hunched over her onions like she's interrogating them. She doesn't speak when she sees you, but she doesn't throw a shoe either. That's progress. You nod respectfully and start gathering your things, such as they are. You're about to leave when she stands up, brushes her hands on her apron, and says, "Wait." You freeze. She disappears into her cottage and returns with a chunk of cheese wrapped in cloth and a boiled turnip, barely warm, but still a miracle. You thank her with the kind of voice that sounds like it's swallowing a stone, and she waves you off like your gratitude is an inconvenience. People are strange that way. Not all are cruel. Not all are kind. And not all of them need to explain why they choose one or the other. You take her gifts and move on. By midday, you're back on the road. Your feet have settled into a familiar rhythm, limp, drag step. Your mind drifts. The road stretches on like an unfinished sentence. Trees lean in like gossiping old men, and the sun plays hide and seek through clouds shaped like animals you don't want to meet. A rustling in the brush startles you. You freeze. It's not loud, but it's too rhythmic to be wind. You edge toward the side of the path, crouch low, and wait. Slowly shapes emerge, 3 figures walking single file along a deer trail, heads low, cloaks pulled tight. Travelers, but not your kind. They carry themselves differently, quiet, organized, like they've done this together before. They're not a family, maybe not even friends, but there's something in the way they move, a practiced silence. You recognize it. They're poor, like you. You let them pass, then step back onto the road behind them, close enough to follow, not close enough to alarm. After a while, the one at the back glances over their shoulder. You give a slight nod. They nod back. That's all it takes. By nightfall, you're part of their camp. No fire. Not tonight. Too risky, too close to the manor lands where smoke draws soldiers like flies to a corpse. Instead, the 4 of you share warmth in proximity. Blankets touch. Knees bump. No one complains. There's no conversation at first. But eventually, someone mutters, cold enough to freeze your thoughts. Another grunts, I haven't had a thought worth freezing since last Lent. You chuckle. They don't stop you. One passes you a crust of bread. Another offers a water skin. You offer your cheese. It's more barter than bonding, but it works. It's strange, this kind of companionship. You don't know their names. Don't need to. Out here, names are like coins. You only show them when you trust they won't be stolen. You eat. Not enough, but just enough. Then you sleep in shifts. That's how it works in groups like this. One person always awake, watching the road, listening for trouble. It's not formal. No one's counting hours or tapping shoulders. It's just an unspoken rule: if your eyes open and everyone else is asleep, you stay awake. Until someone else wakes. Until your head starts to nod and you trade off silently. It's not efficient, but it's safe. Safer anyway. Historians note that many poor travelers formed temporary sleep groups, strangers becoming brief allies, their only bond being mutual vulnerability. There's evidence of such sleeping circles in parish records, where entire groups were fined for squatting in fields or barns, often without a single name recorded. You fall asleep listening to someone mutter a prayer to Saint Christopher, the patron saint of travelers. The words are soft, more habit than hope. Still, it feels like something. A quirky custom from Brittany comes to mind. When peasants traveled at night, they sometimes left a coin at a crossroads as a bribe to ward off evil spirits. You never had a coin to spare, but once you left a fishbone, it seemed symbolic. The ghost didn't comment. Tonight is dreamless. Not because you don't dream, but because exhaustion claims you so completely it wipes even the shadows from your mind. When you wake, dew coats everything. Your cloak, your hands, your companions. They look like frost-bitten statues breathing in clouds. You rise silently. So do they, no words, just movement. Each heads a different direction. One nods, another waves. The third simply vanishes into the trees. You never knew their names, but you already miss them. You walk alone again, but differently now, with the memory of others beside you. For a while, that's enough. The sun climbs. You pass a wooden cross by the roadside, flowers rotted at its base. A marker. Someone died here. You nod to it. Not out of superstition, but respect. You know what it means to survive a night you weren't sure you'd get through, and what it means to leave no name behind. The sun rises, but it doesn't warm you. It just gives you fewer shadows to hide in. You're on a long, straight stretch of road now, one that feels ancient. Not in the grand, stone-paved Roman way, but in the worn-down, sunken rut 100 poor feet have walked this before you kind of way. Grass creeps along its edges. Trees lean just close enough to whisper, but not close enough to shelter. You're exposed here, and you feel it. You've been lucky so far. No brigands, no wild dogs, no sudden illness or twisted ankles. But something about this road makes you nervous. It's too quiet, too wide open. You keep glancing over your shoulder, expecting to see a shape emerge behind you. Eventually, it does. But it's not a man. It's a dog. Gaunt, pale, limping slightly. You freeze. It freezes. Then it sits. It watches you for a long time. You take a cautious step forward. It doesn't move. You take another. Then it stands and begins walking parallel, just out of reach. A silent companion. You don't speak. You're not sure if it's stray lost or something else entirely. Eventually, it disappears into the underbrush as if it never existed. You don't chase it. You've heard stories. There's always a story. The white dog that follows the dying. The hound that leads lost travelers to their graves. The loyal ghost of a traveler who starved and never left the road. You keep walking. The road dips into a valley. The light changes, slants, oddly flickers between the trees. And then you hear it. A sound like laughter. Not the joyful kind. Not the childlike kind. The other kind, the sharp-edged, you shouldn't be here kind. You stop. Nothing. Then you hear it again. Louder. Closer. It's not laughter. It's screaming. High. Piercing. Cut off mid-breath. You turn. Still nothing behind you. Nothing on the road. Just trees. But your blood is cold now. Your hands shake. You walk faster. This part of the world has stories. Always has. Things the church tried to stomp out with incense and sermons. But people remember, especially the poor. They can't afford to forget. You sleep out here long enough, you start to believe in things you never learned names for. One story you were told, never sleep near an old stone wall if it curves without reason. That's a fairy ring, or a plague boundary. Either way, the dead walk there, or the not quite dead. You see a wall up ahead. You veer off the road immediately. You press on until dusk. Every rustle sets your teeth on edge. Every gust of wind feels like a hand on your back. When you finally spot a cluster of trees thick enough to hide you, it feels like salvation. You crawl in, find the driest patch of ground you can. Make a nest of leaves and your threadbare cloak, and try to sleep. You do not succeed. Your heart pounds. Your ears strain. At one point you hear breathing that is not yours. You hold your own, but nothing happens. Not yet. At some point, exhaustion overrules fear and you drift. You wake to the sound of movement. Close. Your eyes snap open. The moon is out now, pale and cold above the trees. You sit up slowly, not making a sound. Something moves beyond the trees. A figure. No torch. No pack. Just gliding. Almost weightless. You don't breathe. It stops. Turns. Looks directly at you. Or maybe past you. Or maybe through you. Then it moves on. You don't sleep again that night. When dawn finally comes, it feels less like hope and more like a temporary truce. The world returns to being explainable. Trees are trees, sounds are birds. You survived the night, barely. Historians still debate how superstitious medieval peasants truly were. Some claim most were deeply religious and all else was nonsense. Others insist folklore shaped daily life as much as any Bible. But when you're alone in the woods, cold, hungry, surrounded by things you can't name, belief becomes survival. A quirky little detail from an old Irish tract: some poor travelers tied bells to their cloaks so spirits would mistake them for clergy. You don't have a bell. You don't have much of anything. But you whisper a half-remembered prayer anyway as you return to the road. By noon, the road rises again, and you catch sight of smoke in the distance. You quicken your pace. A cottage no too big, a manor no too ruined. It's a church, small stone roof intact, a garden out back. You approach slowly. You don't knock. You kneel by the side door and wait. Eventually, someone opens it. A monk. His robes are patched. His face soft, weathered, unreadable. He says nothing, just looks at you. You lower your gaze. He steps aside. You step in. The church is cold but dry. The smell of wax and stone and something earthy, maybe soup, hangs in the air. You don't speak. Neither does he. He hands you a wooden bowl and gestures to a bench by the fire. You obey. You eat. It's barley. Maybe a sliver of carrot. It might as well be heaven. He watches. Finally, he speaks. You saw something. Not a question. You nod. He sighs. This land remembers. You don't ask what that means. You sleep on a mat near the hearth that night. The first real fire you've slept beside in days, and you dream, not of spirits or hunger or dogs, but of silence. Peaceful, sacred silence. The fire is nothing more than glowing coals when you wake, but even their faint heat feels indulgent. You stretch on the reed mat, unsure how long you've slept. Long enough to not feel your bones like splinters. Long enough to forget just briefly that the road exists. But the road never forgets you. The monk is already awake, of course. They always are. He moves like a shadow through the chapel, lighting candles, straightening hymnals, arranging nothing into something. He doesn't speak to you. Doesn't need to. You rise quietly, fold the mat, and place it where you found it. He nods once in approval, subtle, almost imperceptible. But to you, it feels like the loudest kindness in weeks. There's no breakfast. There wasn't much dinner either. But you're not ungrateful. He offers you a water skin, a blessing, and a soft reminder. The bishop rides through these parts once a week. He does not like guests. Translation: you should go now before someone makes you go. You step outside into morning air, thick with dew, and something less natural fog, maybe, or the residue of last night's fears. The church behind you is the last friendly structure you'll see for some time. Your feet take you back to the road without asking your opinion. It's mid-morning when you reach a fork. The left path leads up toward the hills, the right into a forest. You've been warned about both. The hills are exposed, no cover, no villages, no guarantee of water. The forest is the forest. Dark, dense, full of stories and sounds and things that don't like being disturbed. You choose the forest, because sometimes shade is more valuable than safety. You enter the woods and the light changes immediately. Everything is green and brown and silent in that suffocating way that makes you feel like you're trespassing in a story that doesn't want you. The road is less a road than a suggestion. Now 2 ruts between trees, half swallowed by moss and time. Your feet sink into soft earth. Every step sounds too loud. You walk for hours, and then you smell it. Smoke. Your body tenses. Fire, yes, but not forest fire. Cooking fire. Wood smoke and fat. Maybe meat. Maybe just hope. You follow it. You reach a clearing. A fire burns low in the center. Around it, a few hunched figures, travelers like you, perhaps. Maybe not. You stay at the edge of the clearing until one of them sees you. A man with a face like a boot. Weathered. Tough. Surprisingly gentle eyes. He gestures for you to come. You do. You sit near the fire, cautious. No one speaks at first. There are 4 of them, all different ages. One's a woman with gray hair braided tight like rope. Another's a young boy, maybe 12, with a bandaged hand. The 4th is sleeping, snoring softly beneath a cloak. After a few minutes, someone passes you a bowl. You look inside. Beans. Actual beans. You eat with small bites, savoring every single one. It's the kind of meal you'd trade your left shoe for. Though frankly, your left shoe isn't worth much these days. After you eat, someone finally speaks. Where you coming from? You answer vaguely. A village, a road, a church. They nod. No follow-ups. Everyone's running from something, or towards something, or pretending they aren't doing either. The fewer the details, the better. That night you stay with them. They don't ask your name. You don't ask theirs. But you all sleep near the fire, forming a rough ring, sleeping in shifts. 2 wake, 2 rest, then switch. It's not official, just instinct. Like birds flying in formation, not because they talked about it, but because something old and shared tells them how. It feels safer this way. Historians still argue whether the poor organized themselves in this fashion regularly. Some say it's wishful thinking, romanticizing misery. Others believe in the banding instinct that those on the margins always find each other, even if only for a night. You believe it now. You wake in the middle of your shift. The woods are still. Too still. You listen. No owls, no rustling. Just fire and breathing. Then something else. A soft, dragging sound, like a bag pulled over dirt. You sit up. The woman is already awake, staring into the trees. She doesn't say anything. You don't either. It stops. Eventually. But neither of you sleeps again. In the morning, no one speaks of it. You walk together on a while down the winding green corridor of the forest road. The young boy throws a stick at a crow. Misses. Then one by one, the group peels off. The older man goes left toward a trail only he seems to know. The woman heads deeper into the trees, the boy trailing her. The sleeping man vanishes before you even notice him leave. You're alone again. But that night stays with you. The way they moved, the quiet jokes, the silent agreement to protect each other if only for a few hours. You start to think maybe the road isn't always about escape. Maybe sometimes it's where people come together when the rest of the world says no. A quirky tidbit from a French traveler's journal: in some regions, peasants marked their shared camp spots with symbols carved into trees. simple icons like circles, hands, or stars. It was like leaving a whisper for the next person. This place is safe. You wonder what kind of mark last night's group would have left. You keep walking. Not because you want to, but because you know what happens if you stop. The forest slowly thins. Not all at once, more like a slow exhale, trees giving way to fields, shadows pulling back, as if embarrassed by how closely they clung to you for so long. You step into the sunlight, like someone emerging from a cave, blinking, unsure if this brightness is blessing or trap. Your body aches. Your back is stiff. Your right knee protests every step with a quiet, angry throb. And your stomach, well, your stomach sounds like it's rehearsing a rebellion. But the road waits. It always does. You come to a crossroads. No signs. No names. Just two diverging paths and a weather-worn post that probably once held directions, but now serves only as a perch for a very unimpressed crow. It glares at you as you pass, croaking once like it's warning you personally. To the left, open road and low hills. To the right, a hollow in the trees and something else. Smoke, but not the faint, gentle kind. This is heavier, more deliberate. Campfire smoke. You follow it. The path narrows. Grass grows thick underfoot. Then just over a low ridge you see it. A ring of people gathered around a fire. Some are laughing. Some are sleeping. Some are scratching at flea bites with the absent-minded expertise of professionals. You've found a camp, a real one, not a band of desperate stragglers. This is a small village of the unwanted. You step carefully into view, not too fast, not too slow. You let them see your face, your empty hands, your worn boots. A woman with sharp shoulders and a missing tooth spots you first. She doesn't wave, but she doesn't scream either. Progress. After a moment, she jerks her chin toward a vacant patch near the fire. You walk over and sit wordless. One of the men near you is boiling something in a pot, roots and beans, and something vaguely fish-like. The smell is strong, not unpleasant, just alive. A boy sits beside you, probably no older than 10. He watches you for a moment, then leans close. "This place has fleas," he whispers. You nod. "I like fleas better than being cold," he adds. Hard to argue with that. Someone hands you a piece of bread, flat, hard, but food. You chew slowly, gratefully, your jaw sore but willing. The fire warms your fingers, and your heart too, in a way you're almost afraid to admit. Because this feels like something dangerous. It feels like belonging. Historians often gloss over these kinds of camps, temporary communities of the poor travelers who weren't going anywhere in particular, just moving together because solitude is more dangerous than suffering. There are scraps of records, fines issued, fires broken up, but the people themselves mostly invisible, like you. But here in this clearing they exist, fully. Someone sings softly an old folk tune about a girl who married a wolf. You know the lyrics. Everyone does. You hum along under your breath. The boy smiles. Then the man beside you, bald, sunburned, wearing a cloak that smells like every bad decision ever made, leans close. "Want to hear a story?" he rasps. You nod. "Because stories are currency here. 3 years ago, he says, I slept under the gallows of a town I wasn't welcome in. Guards threw me out after sundown. Said if I wanted shelter, I could have it under the corpse." He chuckles. "I did. Slept right there with the rope swinging above me like a lullaby. Wind rattled his boots against the post all night. Thought I'd lose my mind." You blink. He grins. "Best sleep I ever had. Not a soul came near me. Someone nearby snorts with laughter. Someone else coughs. The fire pops. The boy whispers, "Did he dream anything?" The man shrugs, "Can't remember. Just know I woke up warm and alive." You don't know whether to be horrified or impressed. Maybe both. That's the thing out here, horror and humor often share a blanket. A quirky old tradition comes to mind. Some beggars would carry gallows dust in their pouches, believing it protected them from spirits and soldiers alike. Supposedly, if you rubbed a little on your boots, no one could catch you. You wonder if that man had a whole pocketful. You stay in the camp that night. No shifts this time. There are too many people, too many eyes. You sleep curled against a tree root, with your bundle clutched to your chest, and the boy snoring softly a few feet away. It isn't quiet. Someone's coughing. Someone's moaning in their sleep. Someone loudly and unapologetically is scratching their rear, but it feels safe somehow. You dream of strange things, of bonfires made from old law books, of coins that turn to bread in your hands, of fleas performing a musical number on your knees. When you wake, it's nearly dawn. The fire's low. People are already packing, stretching, yawning. This place wasn't permanent. None of them are. You rise, shoulders stiff, and start to gather your things. You catch the boy's eye. He waves, you wave back. Then you walk, alone again. But not lonely. Not quite. Because now you know there are others like you. Out there. Finding each other in hollows and hedgerows and forgotten fields. Sharing warmth. Sharing scraps. Sharing stories. And sometimes even sharing silence. You don't look back. The road waits. The road is different now. Wider, hard-packed. Flattened not just by foot traffic, but by cartwheels and hooves and time. It even has ruts carved deep enough to guide your feet like a lazy river. Just follow the indentations, and you won't drift off course. Not that you know where course is. Still, something about this stretch feels official. Like it leads somewhere important, which for you probably just means somewhere guarded. By midday, your suspicions are confirmed. Far ahead beyond a low rise, you spotted a gate. Not a grand one. Nothing gilded or ornate. Just two wooden posts flanked by low stone walls, and a thin column of smoke curling up from the guard station beside it. You freeze breath, caught halfway between hope and instinctive dread. Walled towns are a gamble. They mean food shelter, maybe work. They also mean laws and questions, and people with sticks who really enjoy asking them. You walk slower as you approach, not out of caution, but calculation, practicing your story in your head. Looking for my brother. He sent for me. I was told there's work. No, I'm not sick. Yes, I've had church blessings. No fleas, see scratch, scratch. The gate comes into full view. Two guards, one sitting with a half-eaten turnip in his lap, the other leaning on a spear that looks more decorative than dangerous. Neither looks particularly alert. You step into view. They both look up. You smile, not too much, not too desperate. The sitting one squints. You don't look like you belong here. You shrug. Don't belong anywhere. Just passing through. The other one huffs. Aren't you all? They exchange a glance, then wave you through. Just like that. No questions. No bag searches. No suspicious glares. You walk through the gate with a knot in your chest, waiting for the shout to come after you. It never does. You're inside. The town is modest. Stone walls, wooden homes, a central square with a fountain that probably worked once. Chickens wander freely as they tend to do in every economic system. A baker sells hard rolls from a stall. Children chase one another around a dung cart. It's beautiful, not in the storybook sense, not a fairy tale, but in the way that everything here is solid, in place, not about to collapse or blow away. Even the outhouses have roofs. You walk slowly, soaking it in. No one greets you. No one offers you anything. But no one spits either. That's something. You spot the church tower slightly tilted, casting its crooked shadow over the square, and beside it, a bulletin board. You wander over. A list of names. A warning about thieves. An offer of payment for rat catching. And at the bottom, a notice: help wanted, apple orchard 1 mile east. Room and porridge provided. You tear the notice off the board. 1 meal, 1 roof. That's all it takes to change your whole week. But before you leave town, you look for something else, a place to sleep. Just in case. Because nothing is guaranteed. You pass the local inn. The sign out front has a smiling pig painted on it. You pause for a moment, debating whether you can bluff your way in. Maybe they'll let you sweep floors for a place by the hearth. You step through the doorway. Inside, the warmth nearly knocks you over. Fire in the hearth, meat on the spit, ale in mugs, and something even rarer, laughter. The innkeeper sees you, stops polishing a mug, eyes you up and down. You wait for the usual "no room. Try the ditch. Move along." Instead, he grunts, you clean, you blink. Mostly. He tosses a rag at you. Start with the benches. You sleep in the hayloft. You nod so fast your neck cracks. It's a job. It's more than a job. It's indoor sleep. He hands you a bowl, mostly broth, 1 chunk of something suspiciously meat-adjacent floating in the middle, and you eat it like it's treasure. Then you scrub benches for 2 hours. Splinters, sticky rings, mysterious smells. All part of the deal. Later you climb a ladder into the hayloft. It smells of animals, but also of old sun and straw and wood that remembers warm summers. You nestle into the hay cloak around you and close your eyes. You hear laughter from the tavern below. A song. Someone arguing about turnips. You smile. This is the safest you've felt in weeks. Historians often skip over these moments, the lucky breaks, the quiet mercies. They focus on the labor, the suffering, the systemic cruelty. And yes, all that is true. But for every 10 nights you sleep in the rain, there's a half night like this, where the floor is dry, and the bowl is full, and no one kicks you awake. A quirky detail in some English towns' haylofts above inns were unofficially known as poor nests. Some even had carved initials in the beams, travelers leaving proof of their passage. You check the wood above you. Sure enough, initials scratched deep. You add your own. Not your real name, just a mark, a curve, and a slash. Something simple, something that says, "I was here. I survived." And then you sleep. Hard, deep, dreamless. Because tonight, at least, the road doesn't need you, and you don't need it. Not until tomorrow. You wake with hay in your mouth, in your ears, and in places hay was never meant to be. But still, you're warm. The sun is a gentle glow filtering through the wooden slats of the hayloft. Below the soft clatter of mugs, the creak of floorboards, the occasional snore from someone who paid too much for too little ale. You lie there a moment longer, eyes closed, body still wrapped in sleep's lingering softness. It's not comfort. Comfort left your life 3 villages ago, but it's the closest thing you've known in weeks. Eventually, your stomach insists it's time to move. You climb down the ladder, careful not to wake the drunk still snoring beside the hearth. The innkeeper grunts at you from behind the counter and tosses you another crust of bread, slightly stale but generously thick. You chew as you wipe down the bench, again habit now. Payment in work, not words. No one talks to you. That's fine. You're invisible, but in the kind of way that doesn't come with thrown stones or kicked shins. You stay for 2 more hours, long enough to clean the ashes, stack some wood, and nod politely to 3 travelers who look like they own more than just one tunic. Then you're gone back on the road, with a belly just shy of half full and a vague sense of direction. East. Orchard. Porridge. Seems like a fair deal. You walk past the edge of the village boots, catching the morning dew. The road curves gently around a hill, and there it is, a spread of apple trees, knotted and low, their branches hanging heavy with late summer fruit. You can smell them before you're close, sweet tart, faintly rotting, where the overripe ones have dropped to the ground. You find the orchard's edge guarded not by fences, but by a boy sitting on a barrel. He looks up, doesn't smile. Looking for porridge, he asks. You nod. He points to the barn. You head that way. Inside, there's a man sorting apples into wooden crates. Good bruised, useless. He glances up, sees your hands more than your face, and says, "You know how to pick without snapping the stem." You nod again. "Doesn't matter if you do, you'll learn." He jerks his chin toward the trees. "Start row 3. Work your way down. Keep the bruised ones separate. You sleep in the shed. Eat at dusk." That's more than fair. You drop your pack behind a barrel, roll up your sleeves, and get to work. You spend the day picking apples. It's simple but not easy. Each tree has a personality. Some give up their fruit eagerly, branches drooping like drunkards. Others clutch it close, forcing you to climb, stretch, and occasionally swear softly into the leaves. Bees hum around your ears. A wasp takes offense at your existence and reminds you that pain still exists. You flick it off and carry on. By dusk, your arms are scratched, your fingers sticky, your back sore, and that oddly satisfying, you earned this sort of way. You sit with the others, 5 of them, mostly quiet, and eat. Not just porridge. Porridge and stewed apples. And bread. And something suspiciously like butter. It's practically a feast. You eat slowly, savoring every bite, half afraid it'll vanish if you go too fast. No one talks much. A man coughs. A woman hums softly. Someone snores before finishing their bowl. You sleep in the shed. It smells of apples and mice and tired people. But it's dry and quiet. And there's a blanket, an actual blanket. You wrap yourself in it and sleep like a stone in a deep pond. No dreams, just the weight of gravity reminding you that for now you are still part of this world. The next day is more of the same. Pick, sort, stack, eat, sleep. By the 3rd day, you start to hum while working. By the 4th, the boy from the barrel offers you half an apple already bitten. You accept it anyway. By the 5th, the woman who hums tells you her name, Nella. You don't give yours, not because you don't want to, but because you're not sure which name to use. Somewhere along the way, you stopped being who you were and started being whoever survives. Historians still argue whether poor laborers had long stretches of seasonal stability like this. Some say no poverty was constant flux, endless motion. Others point to ledgers, grain records, and stories passed down. Yes, there were brief pauses, little islands of rhythm in a sea of chaos. This orchard feels like one of those islands. A quirky detail in some medieval farms: workers were allowed to sleep in the trees themselves to prevent theft or to steal in secret, depending on the version of the story. Some even built small tree nests of straw and cloth, sleeping like birds with aching backs and sap-stained fingers. You consider trying that. But the shed is warmer. A week passes, maybe more. You stop counting. Your feet begin to heal. Your fingers develop tiny calluses that feel like trophies. You start recognizing the trees by their shape, the droopers, the scratchers, the stubborn ones. You laugh once, an honest laugh. Then the orchard ends. The harvest is done. The man thanks you with a nod and a coin the size of a dirty thumb. You leave with your bundle, your blanket, and a sticky apple in your pocket. It's time. The road is waiting again. But this time you're not limping. You're walking like someone who has seen shelter, tasted sweetness, and heard someone say their name aloud, even if it wasn't yours, even if you still haven't said it back. You look over your shoulder once before the trees vanish, then forward again, always forward. The road stretches on cracked and dust-choked, the scent of apples still lingering on your fingers like a fading spell. You walk slower now, not because you're tired, though you always are, but because you're full. And it changes you, makes you notice things again. The birdsong overhead, the way sunlight plays across the wheat fields like gold catching its breath. Even the way your feet land lighter, softer, like they're finally part of the earth instead of just punishing it with each step. It's not long before you're no longer alone. First, you pass a man, thick boots, long beard. He carries a pack far too large for one man, but he moves like he's done this walk 100 times. He grunts in greeting. You grunt back. Perfect. Then more small groups, travelers. By mid-morning, you realize something you haven't seen in weeks. You're part of a crowd, not a market crowd, not a fair, not a riot. A moving crowd. Dozens of them. Some barefoot, some cloaked, some with walking sticks, others pushing carts or dragging bundles tied with strips of old cloth. One woman rides a donkey. Another carries a sack that mews softly. Pilgrims. You realize it without anyone saying so. All of them headed the same direction, toward a shrine, or a relic, or forgiveness. Maybe they believe. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just heard there's bread at the end, and no one asks questions on holy roads. You don't plan to join them. You just happen to be walking in the same direction. But that's the funny thing about groups, they absorb you without permission. Someone offers you a skin of watered wine. Someone else shares a hard-boiled egg cut carefully in half with a twig. You nod, take what's offered, say thanks with your eyes. You become part of them, if only for now. Historians write much about pilgrims, of course, how they brought coin to towns, caused headaches for landlords, and were both honored and distrusted depending on the season. But what they rarely capture is the strangeness of the road shared this way. The strange community of silence and dust and sore feet. You walk beside a woman with a crooked staff and a voice like cracked parchment. She tells you she's going to see the bones of Saint Harrow, and if he's real, she plans to ask him why her goats keep dying. You nod solemnly. God's business, she mutters, is often badly run. You snort. She grins. Later, a young man with bright eyes and mud to his knees tells you he's walking to purge sin. You ask what he did. He says nothing. You believe him. Guilt doesn't always need a crime. That night, the group stops near a ruined farmhouse. The roof's gone, but the stone walls are high and dry. It's an unspoken agreement, this is the place. No one leads. No one assigns space. Everyone simply settles. You find a spot near a broken hearth. The woman with the goats lies nearby, one of her kids curled up against her stomach. It bleats once, then falls asleep. You watch a man with an old lute play a tune without words. Just his fingers brushing across strings like they're afraid to wake something. For a moment, the firelight softens everything. Faces that looked haggard by day seem gentler now. Even your own hands, dirty and cracked, seem less like tools and more like parts of you. Someone passes around a chunk of cheese. It's hard, nearly inedible. You take a bite anyway, and you listen to stories, real ones, false ones that start with, "My cousin swore this happened," and end with everyone raising eyebrows and pretending they didn't just get chills. The best one of the night comes from a woman dressed like a nun, though you're not sure she's ever met a convent that would take her. She says there's a road that curves so slowly, no one realizes they're walking in a circle. It ends where it begins. Every traveler who walks it wakes up one morning in the same place they started. Years older, convinced they've made it somewhere new. Some say it's a punishment. Some say it's a blessing to come home without knowing you left. No one speaks for a while after that. Someone stokes the fire. You stare into it, and for the first time in days, you wonder where your road leads. Do you even want to know? Or is it better to just keep walking? Historians still argue whether most peasants traveled for faith or necessity. The line was always blurry. Sometimes your field was flooded and the church fed pilgrims. Sometimes you sinned because it was the only way to eat, and a pilgrimage was the cheapest penance you could afford. Sometimes you just followed the dust trail ahead of you and hoped it didn't lead to a noose. A quirky old belief from the Rhineland pilgrims who completed their journey barefoot were granted 3 wishes instead of 1. The trick, of course, was surviving with feet left to stand on. You look down at yours, still there. Barely. That night you sleep with your back to the fire and your eyes half open. No rats, no shrieking winds, just snoring, the soft chewing of a goat, a child murmuring in sleep. You're safe, not because of walls, but because of people. That's rarer than you thought. When you wake, half the group is already gone. Some walk fast, some couldn't sleep, some just don't like goodbyes. You gather your things, the goat bleats farewell, the cracked voice woman nods. You head east again. Still technically a pilgrim now, still you, but different. Because last night for a little while you weren't poor or nameless or cold. You were just part of something, and you remember how that feels. By midday, the road begins to blur, again faces fade, trees repeat themselves, and even your thoughts start to loop. You begin to forget when you started walking, and whether this path has always looked like this, or if it's changed while you weren't paying attention. Your mind wanders too. You think of towns you've passed, names you didn't ask, campfires where no one spoke your name but they still left space for you by the flame. You think of how few people ever really looked at you, saw you as something other than a body on the edge of the road. That's how it happens. That slow detachment. You're not quite a person anymore. Not to the world anyway. You're a figure, a silhouette, a risk, a footnote. And that's why when you reach the next village and they look at you like you're already guilty of something, they're not really wrong. They've just decided what you are, but before you have a chance to tell them otherwise. The road curves downhill toward the cluster of houses ringed by a rough fence and watched by a single man leaning on a pitchfork. He sees you, doesn't wave, just keeps watching. You adjust your pace. Not too fast, don't look like you're running. Not too slow, don't look like you're lurking. As you near the edge of the village, you catch murmurs, words that have weight. stranger, thief, outsider. One woman pulls her child closer. A dog barks. The man with the pitchfork doesn't move, but his grip tightens. You offer a nod. The kind that says, "I'm not trouble, I'm just tired." But tired people have been trouble before. Someone mutters, "Watch your pots." You keep walking. No one invites you to stop. No one offers food or work or a kind glance. You reach the center of the village, a crooked well, a bench warped by rain, and pause, unsure what to do. Then someone shouts. It's not loud, just sharp. "Oi! What did you take?" You turn. A man storming toward you, red-faced and out of breath. You haven't taken anything. You know you haven't. But the moment your mouth opens to say so, a small crowd is already forming. They don't need proof. They need a target. You raise your hands, palms open. "I'm just passing." Then keep passing. Someone else spits. The man who accused you squints. "You've been here before." "I haven't." But he shakes his head like he knows something you don't. Same cloak, same face. You were the one with the bread. You weren't. But does it matter? Historians argue about how common these scenes were. Some say the poor could wander without trouble if they kept their heads down. Others point to records, floggings, stockades, travelers blamed for anything and everything. When the wind howls through your windows and your goat dies in the night, it's easier to blame the man with dirty feet than to admit the world is just cruel. You back away, hands still up. "I didn't take anything." They don't hear you. Or maybe they do, and it just doesn't matter. A stone flies, misses your shoulder by inches. Another hits your side. Not hard, but hard enough. That's your cue. You turn and walk. Fast. Not run. Not yet. Running makes you guilty. Another stone. You duck. A child laughs. A man shouts something about witches. You break into a jog. This too is part of the road. This rejection. This humiliation. This invisible crime you never committed. You don't stop until the village is a speck behind you. You don't stop until the trees take you in again, and the world forgets there's anyone worth chasing. You collapse by a ditched chest, heaving one hand pressed to the bruise on your ribs. Nothing broken. Just your sense of self again. You sit there for a while, breathing, not crying. You don't cry anymore. Not really. Just let the pain leak out slow. Eventually you move on, because you have to. But something stays with you. A sickness not in your stomach, but in your chest. The realization that sometimes it doesn't matter who you are. People see a stranger, and that's enough. You find shelter that night beneath a cart left to rot in a field. It's missing a wheel, tilted sideways like it's trying to fall asleep. You slide beneath it, curl up against the grass, and try to pretend you're invisible in a good way. Not in the "don't notice me, don't hurt me" way. Just forgotten. At peace. You dream of being mistaken for someone good, someone helpful, someone loved. Just once. And then you wake to the sound of screaming. Not from you, not from the village, somewhere nearby. A voice high, shrill, cut off too fast. Then nothing. You don't move. You don't speak. You just listen. To the quiet. And to the part of you that whispers, keep moving. Because you weren't blamed this time. But next time you might not be so lucky. The scream haunts you longer than it should. Not because of what it meant, though, that's bad enough, but because of how fast the silence swallowed it. You stay under the cart until sunrise, eyes wide, breath shallow, limbs stiff from sleeping in a half-curled, half-ready-to-flee position. When the first light spills over the grass, you emerge slowly, ears tuned to every rustle. Every bird call, every gust of wind that might be more than wind. No bodies, no searchers, just morning, just you. And the question you'll never answer. Who screamed? You don't talk to anyone that day. You don't see anyone, not even from a distance. The road feels deserted, as if the land itself is pretending it didn't hear anything either. But as the sun climbs higher, the sky grows hotter. Sweat clings to your back, the inside of your cloak, damp and uncomfortable. Your water's gone. Your legs ache. You start scanning the fields for any sign of a stream, or a barrel, or an unattended trough. That's when you see it, a bundle by the roadside. It looks like a sack, abandoned, lumpy, covered with dust. You slow down, wary. Step closer. It's not a sack. It's a man. Dead. Barefoot. Cloak torn. His face is turned away, but the flies don't care. You don't look long. You've seen too many like him, and you know better than to touch anything. But you do notice something. His cloak. It's thicker than yours, warmer, and the night ahead promises wind. You hesitate. This is the moment, the one where travelers become scavengers. Not because they're cruel, but because the road demands it. You kneel, whisper something under your breath. Not a prayer exactly, more an apology. A promise that you'll carry the weight of this. Then you take it. You leave your own behind. Fold his tightly. Sling it over your shoulder. It's not about comfort. It's about survival. By dusk, you find shelter under a fallen tree near a brook. The water is slow and shallow, but clear. You drink, splash your face, clean your hands, your neck, the back of your knees. It helps. Not enough, but some. Then you wrap yourself in the dead man's cloak and lie back. It smells like old smoke, like sweat, like someone else's life. But it's warm. And that warmth carries you into sleep. You dream of nothing. When you wake, the stars are bright, too bright, the moon high. Your breath fogs in the night air and the cloak clings to you like it knows its job. You sit up, shift slightly. That's when you notice the mark. Stitched into the lining, small, crude, but clear. 3 shapes, a circle, a line, and a slash through both. You've seen it before, long ago, burned into a door in a village you passed through. The one where no one spoke after sunset. The one with the empty well. You touch the mark, and suddenly you don't feel quite so warm anymore. Historians still argue whether the poor had codes, symbols passed down through travelers' marks to show danger or safety or secrets. Some say it's fantasy. Others point to scratched stones, carved trees, the whispers and folk tales that always begin if you see the 3-marked cloak. You stare into the dark, wondering what this man was running from or toward. You don't sleep again that night. When dawn comes, you fold the cloak and carry it instead. Not wearing it, not now, just holding it, as if it might still carry answers in the seams. You walk past a barn half swallowed by weeds, past a field where scarecrows stand in the wrong places too close to the road, past a ditch where old bones peek through the mud like they're trying to forget something. And finally, you see it. A cluster of tents, colorful, mismatched, poorly set. Travelers, outcasts, like you. A man sees you approach. He holds out a hand. Not in warning, in welcome. You walk along, you nod. He eyes the folded cloak. That yours? now you say. He smiles like he understands far too much. The camp is small, 10 people maybe 12. Most look like they've walked farther than you. One woman has only one shoe. A boy carries a broken sword like it's still sharp. An old man plays a flute with no holes. You sit by their fire. You don't speak. You just listen. Someone tells a story about a girl who married a river. Someone else says the king's been dead for a year, but no one's told the palace yet. And then a woman with silver in her braid glances at you and says, "Tell us one." You blink. "A story, a trade," she says. You eat. You speak. So you do. You tell them about the scream, about the man in the road, about the cloak. You show it, carefully. No one touches it. But they all nod. Not like they're afraid, like they've seen worse. The woman leans forward. "You're not cursed," she says. "Not yet." "Good to know," you say. She grins. Most aren't that lucky. That night you sleep beside people again. Close. Not friends. Not yet. But not strangers either. You don't wear the cloak, but you keep it close, just in case. Because out here, even a dead man's warmth is better than none. And sometimes kindness comes in the shape of something someone else couldn't carry anymore. The fire has long since burned down to orange coals by the time your eyes open. Your first thought is, you're still here. Your second, they didn't steal the cloak. Your third, you're not sure if you're relieved. It's cold. One of those mornings that clings to your teeth and stiffens your fingers before you've even stood. Around you, the others stir quiet grunts, the rustle of blankets, the rhythmic scratching of someone trying to chase lice off their scalp with fingernails alone. The woman with the silver braid is already up. She's tending to a pot over the fire's last heat. Something brown and thick, barely edible by the look of it, but your stomach has no standards anymore. She sees you, nods. Eat quick. There's a market down road. You'll want to get there early. You sit up. What kind of market? She stirs the pot with a stick. The kind where not everything has a price and nothing has a receipt. Ah, a thieves' market. You've heard of them always spoken in a particular tone, part dread, part admiration. They pop up and vanish with the same energy as traveling theater troupes. But instead of plays, they offer bread baked yesterday boots that once had owners' knives with initials carved into the hilt, and gossip. So much gossip. You accept a bowl of the brown stew, turnip, skin, onion ends, and something that might be lentil if you're lucky, mud if you're not. Still, it's warm and free. Before long, the camp begins to dissolve. No one says goodbye. People just stand, sling packs, nod once, and melt into the road. You follow. The path is surprisingly busy. You spot a man pushing a wheelbarrow full of rags. A woman walking with a goose on a string. A pair of barefoot children trading acorns like they're coins. And ahead, a bend in the road, a flash of canvas, the rise and fall of voices like birds in a field. You've arrived. The market is less market and more organized chaos. It fills a shallow valley cluttered with tents and carts and blankets laid out like rugs. Sellers shout half-hearted pitches. Buyers pretend not to steal. Everyone's pretending something. You pass a stand selling boots. Most are mismatched. Some are still damp. The seller eyes your worn soles and grins. Special today, 2 rights for the price of 1 left. You move on. Next, a pile of cloaks. Not unlike the one you carry, still folded, still unopened since the night you slept beside it. A A girl your age stops beside you, picks one up, sniffs it, shrugs. At least if it's cursed, it's a warm curse. You chuckle. She smiles. She's missing 2 teeth. You buy nothing. You have almost nothing to offer. But you trade. Half an apple you've kept too long for a strip of cloth you can bind your foot with. A rusted spoon for a small sack of coarse salt. A story true mostly for a sliver of smoked fish. Stories go a long way here. The seller, an old man with a beard like tangled yarn, leans close after your tale of the screaming night and says, "You'd be surprised how many things on this road scream before they vanish." People, you ask. He grins. Boots. Then he points down the slope toward the edge of the market. There's a tent there taller than the rest, covered in scraps of colored cloth. A crooked sign above it written in a dozen different hands, "Trades only. No coins. No lies." You approach. Inside it smells of vinegar and iron. Tables are stacked with all kinds of items, candles melted to their wicks, bent keys, a cracked harp string, a birdcage with no door. Behind the table stands a woman with hair like rain-wet straw. She looks at you. "Show me," she says. You hesitate, then pull out the cloak. You expect her to flinch. She doesn't. She reaches forward, runs a finger along the stitched mark inside the lining. "Dead man's burden," she mutters. You nod. She peers at you. You wearing it? "No." "Planning to?" You shrug. She considers. Then she lifts a small wooden box from beneath the table, opens it. Inside, a pair of gloves. Leather. Old but solid, lined with something soft. "These are yours now," she says. You blink. "For the cloak?" "No," she says, handing them to you. "For carrying it this long." You take them. Not sure if this is a gift or a trap. She leans in close. Things find you for a reason, and then she waves you out. You leave gloves in hand, feeling like you've just agreed to a bargain you'll only understand in another lifetime. Outside, the market is already shifting. Tents coming down, sellers packing. The valley will be empty by sundown. Thieves don't stay long. You drift uphill away from the bustle. Sit beneath a tree. Pull on the gloves. They fit perfectly. The sky turns amber. You watch people disappear one by one, 2 by 2, like leaves blown by the same whispered command. You stay a little longer, because for the first time in days, maybe weeks, you don't feel hunted, or watched, or even alone. Just tired and whole. The wind picks up. A man walking past nods at your gloves. "Nice," he says. "Not mine," you reply. He grins. "Nothing here ever is." You rest until dark. Then move on. Back to the road. Back to the night. But this time with something warm on your hands and something heavier in your heart. The gloves stay on your hands as the sun sinks behind the hills, casting long blue shadows across the road. They're warm, yes, but more than that, comfortable in a way you don't trust. Like they've already shaped themselves to you, like they've been waiting. You try not to think about it, but you keep them on. Even as night creeps in, and you begin to wonder if this is one of those evenings when walking until collapse is smarter than stopping to sleep. That's when you hear the fire. You don't see it first, just hear it. Not the blaze of a bonfire, but the low, steady crackle of damp wood catching slowly. Smoke too sour, earthy, mixed with the faint tang of something cooking. You follow the sound until the trees open up just enough to show you a small camp. 4 figures hunched around the fire. No tents, just cloaks and bedrolls. You step forward. Not close, just close enough to be noticed. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a scraggly beard and a scar over his eyebrow, looks up and gestures. A hand wave. Not invitation exactly, but not dismissal either. You take it. You sit. No words. Not at first. There's a chunk of something in the pot meat maybe, but of a kind you don't ask questions about. One of the men ladles out a bit and passes it to you. The woman across from him snorts softly. "That your toll," she says. You glance at her. "Story," she adds. "We don't feed ghosts." It's a line you've heard before. A rule among those who live past the edges of polite company. No one eats for free. But the coin here isn't silver, it's stories. Proof you're real. That you've seen something, survived something. You tell one. About the market. About the woman with the box. About the cloak you haven't worn. And the gloves you now wear like second skin. They listen. They don't interrupt. When you're done, the scarred man says, "Huh." Then they gave you the gloves, you nod. He smiles in a way that isn't comforting. "Lucky you didn't get the shoes." The others laugh. You don't ask why. You're not sure you want to know. Instead, you eat the stew. It's tough, flavorless, possibly squirrel, but warm. By the time the bowl's empty, you're part of the fire's circle. They talk in low tones. Nothing grand, just road talk. Where they came from, where they're going. A baron's carriage they saw tipped over on the muddy pass. A woman in a distant village who heals with her hands, but charges memories for her service. You offer no destination. They don't ask. Eventually one of them, an older man with silver in his beard and boots better than yours, says, "Storm's coming." He points toward the hills. You see that roll in the cloud line? You do. He adds, "You want shelter that breathes, not one that buries you," which makes no sense. But no one asks him to explain. They bed down. And you, after a long pause, lie beside them. You don't sleep quickly, but you do sleep. And you dream. Not like before. This time the dream is vivid, bright. You're walking through a forest, dense and shadowless. Your feet don't touch the ground. Your gloves, your hands are glowing faintly like coals beneath skin. A figure waits ahead, hooded. Familiar though you've never seen them. They don't speak, but they raise a hand. 3 fingers extended, then 2, then 1. You wake. The fire's out. The camp is quiet. Everyone still breathes. You exhale and sit up. The gloves are warm even in the dawn chill. The scarred man is already packing. He nods at you. "Still with us?" You nod. "Good," he says. "Gotta walk ahead." You don't ask where. You just go. The 5 of you move as a loose, silent group, strangers, bound by smoke and stories and shared sleep. No names, just shapes on a road. By midday, the wind has picked up. Not playful cutting, slicing through gaps in your clothes like it's looking for something to pull out of you. The woman grunts. "This wind's wrong." The silver-bearded man shrugs. All wind's wrong if it talks too much. They're not joking. You crest a ridge and look down into a dry riverbed. Below, ruins. Not grand, not ancient. Just the broken skeleton of a way station. Walls knee-high. A fireplace without a roof. A few toppled beams. The group stops. No one says it, but this is where they'll sleep tonight. You feel it in the way they start clearing the stones. in the way the scarred man sets down his pack and stretches like he's planting roots. They're not just resting, they're settling, at least for the night. You help rebuild the fire. You gather wood. You move like you've always been here. Later, after another bowl of mystery stew and another round of too long silences, the woman turns to you and says, "You're not like the others." You blink. "Which others?" "The ones who passed through," she says. "Most walk by. You stayed." "I was cold," you reply. She nods, but her eyes say she doesn't believe you. "You keep that cloak?" she asks. You nod. Still not wearing it, you shake your head. "Good," she says, and returns to her stew. That night the wind does talk. It rattles branches, hums through stone cracks, tugs at your ears like it's trying to whisper secrets too old to understand. You press your gloved hands together and listen, not to the wind, but to the silence between the gusts. And in that space you feel something, like you've passed a test you didn't know you were taking, like you've been invited, not just to survive, but to belong. And in the world of the poor, the broken, the outcast, that's rarer than gold. You wake with the wind still in your ears, and the faint memory of something warm brushing your fingers in the night. Not a hand, not a creature, just the feeling of being touched by something old. The fire has burned to nothing but ash, and the others are already packing up. Quiet, efficient, like they've done this 100 times. Maybe they have. You sit up slowly. The scarred man nods at you, then at the trail. East Road forks soon. One way leads to a crossing. The other doesn't. You blink the sleep from your eyes. Which one's safer? He shrugs. Don't know. Ask the river. You take that as a joke. But no one laughs. You walk with them until the fork. Then they stop. Without a word, they each begin to move off in separate directions. The group dissolves just like that, scattered like dry leaves caught in wind. You hesitate. The woman with the silver braid passes you as she veers left. She leans in just enough to whisper, "Don't follow us." Then she's gone. You're alone again. You choose the right path. The trees close in after only a few minutes, taller, now thicker branches knitted overhead like ribs. Shadows fall across your face like a veil. The road narrows, then it dips. And there it is. A hut. Just off the path, half hidden by vines. Its thatched roof is patchy, the walls slanted, but there's a faint wisp of smoke curling from the chimney. That means someone's inside, or was. You should pass it by. You don't. You step closer. The door hangs slightly open. You knock anyway. Nothing. You push gently and it creaks open. Inside, silence. Dust. A bed frame. A table. A pot on the hearth still warm. And hanging by the window, what makes your stomach drop. A strip of white cloth tied in a knot. The kind used by plague doctors. Or those trying to warn travelers, don't stay here. You back out slowly. Outside, the forest is still. Too still. You begin walking again, faster now, eyes scanning every tree trunk like it might move. Then a sound. A cough. You stop. It came from behind you. You don't turn around. You walk faster. You don't look back. You run. By the time the trees thin, your lungs are burning, your hands shaking, and your gloves soaked with sweat. At the tree line, you collapse against a boulder, heart pounding so loudly, you're afraid something will answer it. But nothing does. just the wind again. Harmless. For now. You stare at the sky. Blue. Wide. Empty. Then a shadow passes over you. You jolt upright. But it's just a figure. Standing nearby. Not close. Watching. You blink. They're gone. You laugh. A short, bitter sound. You're tired. You're jumping at ghosts now. Maybe always were. You follow the road until you see movement in the distance. Carts, smoke, a small cluster of people near a field. You smell boiling onions and something vaguely meaty. You approach cautiously. The group turns to look at you. They're poor, like you. Dusty, thin. Faces sunburned and wind-bitten, but alert. One of them, a man with a sharp chin and sharper eyes, asks, "You alone?" You nod. He gestures at a patch of grass. "Sit. Pot's not empty yet." You do. They're travelers like you, but settled. Just for now. One of them is sewing a patch into a boot using a curved needle and twine. Another is sharpening a knife that might once have been a sword. A third, a girl no older than 16, is humming while peeling carrots with a sliver of glass. You glance at her fingers. They're all bandaged. You're handed a bowl. It's stew, of a kind. You eat without asking what's in it. That's the rule. After a while, you ask, "This your camp?" "For now," says the man with the chin. "We move at dusk." Why, he points upward. There, strung between two trees, fluttering like laundry, a faded scrap of red cloth, marked with a symbol, not the one on the cloak. Something else, a circle with 2 X's. You stare. He notices. "Plague mark," he says. "Old one. Recent. No idea. Why stay at all?" He shrugs. "Because we were hungry. Fair." Historians still debate how common plague-marked places were outside cities. Some believe rural areas fared better, more space, fewer people. Others insist the poor suffered just as much, but with no records left behind. You believe it. You've seen what gets lost. As dusk falls, the group begins to pack. You help gathering pots, folding cloth, scattering the fire's remains. You don't ask if you can follow. You just walk with them when they leave, and no one stops you. The road is cool again, the shadows long. You feel the weight of the folded cloak in your pack. Heavier than ever, as if it knows something you don't. As the stars come out, the group sets up again. No fire this time, just blankets and cloaks. They sleep close backs to each other, breathing quiet. You lie at the edge, watching the sky, wondering if that hut had a story, wondering if you're part of it now, and if maybe the scream you heard 2 nights ago was never meant to end. You wake before the others. The sky is still ink dark with only the faintest silver breath curling along the horizon. The kind of silence that feels deeper than quiet, like the world itself is holding its breath. You sit up slowly, your cloak damp from dew, the folded one, the marked one, still nestled in your pack like a sleeping animal. You glance at the group. They're all still asleep, curled into themselves. The girl with the bandaged fingers is twitching, murmuring something in a dream. The man with the sharp chin snores softly, a knife tucked beneath his cloak, like a comfort object. You stand, not to leave, just to move. The road has etched itself into your bones. You've noticed it lately, how your body doesn't know how to be still anymore. Even in sleep, your legs twitch. Your shoulders stiffen like they're already bracing for a long day's walk. So you walk. Just a few steps, away from the camp, away from the warmth of shared bodies and half-traded stories, into the tall grass where the morning fog clings to your boots and wraps around your calves like cold fingers. And there, beneath a crooked tree, you stop. Because you see it. Something small, half-buried, a charm, wooden, worn, shaped like a face, but not a human one. Eyes too big, mouth too wide, smile carved with something that wasn't quite a knife. You reach down, hesitate, then pull your gloved hand back. You're learning. Some things are better left where they lie. You return to the camp, but something in you has shifted. That charm, that face has worked its way into your mind, curling in behind your thoughts like smoke in rafters. The group wakes slowly, quietly. No breakfast, just packed bundles, adjusted straps, and short nods that serve as farewells. You're not sure if they expect you to stay. You're not sure if you expected to stay. But you don't. You walk again. This time alone. By midday, the sun breaks through and the road ahead unfolds in gentle curves, framed by swaying grass and crumbling walls. You pass what used to be a boundary marker, 2 stones, one toppled the other, carved with names now lost to rain and time. The air grows heavier, thick. It's not just heat, it's pressure, the kind that makes you feel like something is watching. You stop, look around. Nothing. You walk faster. Your breath grows shallow. Your boots slap louder against the dirt, no matter how carefully you place them. You feel sweat under your arms and between your shoulder blades, even though the air is cool. And then a whisper behind you, too soft to hear, but enough to make you turn. There's no one there, just the road and the wind and the memory of a scream that never really stopped echoing. You keep walking. The path narrows again, becomes rutted. Deep grooves where cartwheels once passed, now filled with rainwater that never seems to dry. You try not to step in them. You fail. The water's colder than it should be. You reach a tree, bent like it's bowing toward the road. Something dangles from it. Cloth. Tattered. Stained. It flutters once, then goes still. Another marker. You're not sure of what. But your stomach knots anyway. You pass it quickly. Hours blur. By evening, your feet ache, and your mind has slipped into that walking trance where thoughts stop being words and become shapes. Memories. Half-finished prayers. Whispers from people you never really knew. You don't even realize you're humming. Until a voice says that song again. You freeze. You didn't hear them approach. A man stands ahead of you, not blocking the road, just waiting on it. Cloaked, hooded. The way he stands is wrong. Not threatening, not aggressive, just expectant. You open your mouth. He holds up a hand, not to stop you, to show you something. The glove. His right hand is gloved. Your glove. The same one. The same stitching. The same crease, and you stare at your own hands. Still gloved. Still warm. Still whole. You look back up. He's gone. No sound. No trace, just gone. You don't move for a while. When you do, it's slow, cautious, like the air itself has teeth. You make camp before sundown, not by choice, because you have to. You find a dip in the earth shielded by 3 half-collapsed stone walls and a dead tree. You huddle inside it, cloak around you, gloves still on the marked ones, still folded at your side. You don't sleep. Not really. You drift in and out, caught between breath and nightmare. In one dream, you see the man again, only now he's not on the road. He's at the foot of your bed. His hand is out, not to threaten, to return something, a shape, wooden, a charm, the smile too wide. And when you reach to take it, you wake. The night is still, too still. You sit with your back to the stone, breathing slow. The gloves are still on your hands, but they feel heavier. You whisper something to yourself. Not a prayer, not a curse, just a reminder. Keep walking. Don't turn around. Not tonight. You don't wake so much as rise, peeled out of sleep by tension instead of sunlight. The world is dim gray, uncommitted. A sky caught between wanting to rain and deciding it's not worth the effort. Your back aches. Your fingers are numb. The gloves still on. You flex your hands. They creak like doors. It's unclear if it's the gloves or your joints. You sit there for a while, hunched beneath the wall, the marked cloak still folded beside you, untouched, but never far. Every morning it feels heavier. Not physically, just more present. Like it's aware you keep choosing not to wear it. Like it's waiting for you to get cold enough to change your mind. You don't. Not yet. You eat the last bit of crust you traded for days ago. It tastes like stale wood. But it's food. Technically. You drink from a puddle near the root of a tree, pressing your sleeve against your lips like it'll filter out the taste of rot. It doesn't. Then you walk. The road curves slowly uphill through a field of dry grass and quiet wind. Nothing moves. Not the birds. Not even your shadow, which seems reluctant to stay close behind. You start to feel it before you see it. Something wrong. A pressure. A stillness inside the stillness. You slow your steps. Not from fear, from instinct. Up ahead, a small wooden scaffold, tall enough to be seen from any angle. Empty, except for the rope. Still swaying, still dripping. You stop at the edge of its shadow, the gallows. Every traveler passes one eventually, most more than once. Sometimes in towns, sometimes in fields, sometimes on a hill like a scarecrow to ward off unwanted lives. This one is old, weather-worn, nails rusted. But the noose is new, the noose is fresh, and someone used it. Recently. You step closer. There's no body, not anymore. But the rope hangs low enough that if you really wanted to, you could reach out and slip your fingers through the loop. You don't. But your hand twitches toward it anyway. The gloves are warm, too warm. You pull your hand back and take a step away from the structure, eyes scanning the nearby brush for signs of disturbance. And you see it. Boot prints. One set. Yours. Leading straight to the noose. Leading away from it. You stare. Then look down. Your boots are muddy. Not from the road. From here. You didn't come this way. Did you historians rarely write about this, the strange pull some places have? The fact that gallows weren't just punishments, but warnings, statements, symbols, and sometimes people stayed near them, slept under them, even found comfort in their presence, because no one else would come near. No questions, no judgment, no theft, just ghosts for company. And ghosts at least don't lie. A quirky belief from the borderlands sleeping in the shadow of a gallows would bring vivid dreams. Prophetic ones, but only if you slept facing the noose. If you turned your back, you'd never wake. You wonder which way you faced last night. You turn your eyes upward again. They're carved into the wooden beam just above the knot. That symbol again. The circle. The slash. No line this time. Just the mark. It's watching you now. Not from the wood, but from your memory. You feel the gloves tighten. Just slightly. You take another step back, then turn and leave. The road is quiet again, but the silence follows you like a tail. An hour passes, maybe two. The land levels out, opens into a long, empty stretch between two ruined walls. You think you see something up ahead. Not people, not movement. A cross, rough-hewn, tied together with string and good intentions. It leans at an angle. Another grave, a warning. You don't stop to find out. Your steps quicken. You reach a crossroads. No sign, no arrow, but a choice. To the left, a darker path, tree-covered, mud-slick. To the right, open land, easier walk, but no cover, exposed. You hesitate, then turn left. You've walked the open road before, and the world always sees you coming. Better to vanish among trees. It rains. Not a downpour, a misty kind of sadness that clings to your hair, your shoulders, the edges of your blanket. You keep walking. Your boots suck against the mud with each step. Your legs ache. Your gloves are soaked. You don't take them off. You don't know if you can. When night comes, you find no shelter. Just a hollow beneath the fallen tree roots curled up like a cage. You crawl in, hug your pack close. The cloak still folded presses against your side like a sleeping dog. You rest your head. You don't close your eyes. You listen. Not for animals, not for weather, for breathing, other than your own. And there it is, faint, behind you. You don't turn. You just whisper, "I'm not ready yet." The breathing stops. You sleep, eventually. When you wake, there are footprints in the mud outside your shelter. Bare, human, too small to be yours, too fresh to be old. They walk in a circle around your hollow, then vanish. You don't say anything, not out loud. But the gloves know. And the cloak. It shifts slightly when you pick it up, as if something inside it had just been holding its breath. The sun doesn't rise. Not really. It bleeds. A red that seeps through the trees like it's not shining down but leaking out. The road, when you step back onto it, feels unfamiliar despite how long your feet have followed its lines. It curves now where you thought it was straight. Hills rise where you remember flats. A cruel trick of exhaustion or something else. Your steps are slow today, not from pain, not fear, from knowing. Knowing something has changed. The gloves are no longer just warm. They hum. A vibration so faint you wonder if it's real, or if your nerves have simply gone too long without rest. When you try to take them off, the leather clings tighter, not painfully, but possessively. You don't try again. The cloak stays folded, but it's heavier. As though each night you've slept beside it, each dream you've not remembered, has added something to its weight. A breath, a voice, a debt. The road dips suddenly into a shallow basin filled with mist. You walk into it without hesitation now. Fear has lost its bite. It's grown into something else: respect. Reverence. The way a traveler walks through a cathedral with no roof. In the fog, a shape appears. A man. Sitting cross-legged in the center of the path, hands in his lap, eyes closed. You stop several paces away. He doesn't move, but you recognize him. The man from the road, the one with the gloves, or perhaps the original gloves. His eyes open slowly, not startled, like he was waiting. "You've come far," he says. You don't speak. He gestures. You step forward. "Do you know what you're carrying?" he asks. You glance at the cloak. He nods. "There are travelers who walk to find shelter," he says, "and those who walk to escape. But there's a third kind. You wait." They walk because the road doesn't allow them to stop. He stands. His movements are slow, careful, as though the air has weight you can't see. He lifts his hand. The right glove is missing. Only skin. Scarred. Burnt. "I wore them once," he says, "and when I took them off, they remembered me." You stare at your own hands. "They won't let go easily," he adds. "Can I take them off?" His smile is sad. "Not yet." He steps aside off the road. "Then what now?" you ask. He looks at the horizon. You keep walking. A silence hangs between you. Then he adds, "There's a town not far, but it doesn't take in just anyone." You nod. You already knew that. He fades into the fog before your next blink. You don't follow. Just continue. The road turns stony now. Rutted. Lined with crooked fence posts like bones jammed in the earth. A crow watches you from one of them, head tilted like it knows more than it should. The air smells like iron. You crest a hill and see it, a town. Walled, old, still breathing, smoke from chimneys, a toll gate, and movement. You walk toward it expecting what? A question, a denial, a cudgel. But the man at the gate doesn't stop you. He looks once at the gloves, then the bundle, then your face. His expression flattens. You here to rest, you open your mouth, then close it. "Yes," you say. He steps aside. You walk in. The town is ordinary. Stone streets, lanterns, shop stalls half covered in canvas. But it's quiet. Not silent, muted, as though everyone here whispers instead of speaks, walks instead of runs, looks without meeting eyes. You ask a woman where the poor rest. She points, past the well, behind the church. You find it. A low stone structure roof patched with moss and thatch door open to the wind. Inside cots, maybe 15, some full, some waiting. You're given a blanket. No questions, no exchange. You lie down on the cot. The gloves stay on. The cloak you unfold. You wrap it around your chest like armor. For the first time in weeks, you sleep inside a wall. And you dream. Oh, you dream. You see the man again walking in circles around an invisible fire. You see the girl with the bandaged hands whispering to something in her satchel that answers in echoes. You see your own reflection in water, only it doesn't move when you do. You see the tree with the charm hanging from it, but this time it smiles with your mouth. When you wake, your hands are bare. The gloves are gone. You sit up fast. They're folded, beside the cot, a note carved into the stone just above your pillow. You carried them long enough. Let someone else walk now. You laugh, a strange sound, and weep, just for a moment. Then you rise and fold the gloves beside the cloak. Someone will need them, soon. You step outside into the morning. The road waits, as always. But for once, you don't have to take it. Not yet. You sit by the well. Let the sunlight touch your face. And for a fleeting, fragile moment, you don't feel poor, or forgotten, or cursed. You feel like a traveler who made it farther than anyone expected. And you're still standing. You've reached the end of the journey. And now the road gets quiet. The stones beneath your feet soften. The sky stretches wider. The ache in your knees fades, not gone, not erased, but distant now, like something you dreamed instead of lived. You are no longer alone. Not here. Not in this moment. You can rest. Let your eyes close gently, like a door being pulled shut with care. Let the world outside dim to a soft gray. Let the echo of every footstep, every whisper, every fire-lit face fade into stillness. Breathe slow, deeper. Feel the weight of the cloak you didn't wear, the gloves you didn't ask for, the memories you carried even when they weren't yours. Let them go. Let the earth cradle your back. The road will still be there tomorrow. But for now, sleep comes like a friend. And this time it brings no hunger, no wind, no watchful eyes. Only peace, only breath, only the sound of nothing at all. End of script. Sweet dreams.